Do you ever ask yourself the question that why many projects just stay undone? That we don't finish what we start? That there's so many dreams and goals that are unattended, and that there is so much that we can be doing, and yet it stays in our to-do list, and that stays for a week, for a month, sometimes even for a year. How many dreams that fade away? How many opportunities that they leave because we say that perhaps we will do it some other time? How many times that happens to us, and how many times that happens to the people? There is something to talk about the procrastination. There is the science in procrastination. And then there is what you call the psychology of motivation. And how do the two put together our life is sometimes very difficult to detect, yet it is such an easy thing. You see, we have people who go through their projects without having any problems, and then there's others who are just stuck wherever they are, and they just can't seem to take it to the next step. Hi, I'm Aslam Khatri. Welcome to the Growth Gap. This is where we talk about your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations. This is where we hope to talk about the gap there is between where you are right now and where you want to be. We all want to be doing something better than where we are today. Let me help you bridge that gap. You see, when I was starting in my practice as an accountant and as a consultant, many of my clients were older people who had migrated to Canada from different places. And these people would have smaller businesses, small ma and pa shops. These people did that, and they did it very well and made a good life for themselves. One of the things that was very important for them was to give education to their children. They wanted their children to have a better life, and they wanted their children to have the education. But there was always this one thing that went on back and forth, is they would be unhappy that their children are not as motivated as they thought they were. Now, that got me thinking about a lot about the motivation. And even to date, when I talk about it, I cannot stop but go back to those days and think as to what motivation meant to them versus what is the motivation for some other people. And this is the time I was also attending some courses at McGill, and Professor Hertzberg had just written a book on motivation, which was an amazing book in the sense that to date we talk about it. So what is motivation? How does the motivation work, and what are the type of the motivation? So motivation is really an intent, or it's an emotion. It's a feeling that we want to do. We want to get a desire fulfilled. And that is simply the motivation. Now, there are two types of motivations. Of course, there is extrinsic and intrinsic. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is something that where we go out and do something because we need to do it. Meaning going out for a job because we need to live, or to have the food and the shelter and the water, and those are the necessities of the life. So we do things because we need to do them. And then intrinsic is the one where we do it for ourselves, for our own pleasure, for our own self. So my clients in those days were doing these things. They were working. They took whatever they found and they worked their businesses. They mastered the art of doing the business. But this is not something that they wanted to do. They did it because this is something that brought in the revenue, that brought in the income, so that they can send their children to school, so they can do things that they wanted to do. Versus their children who now are at school and they're thinking, and their mind is totally thinking differently. Their motivation is now different. What they want to do is something where they can satisfy their inner need versus their parents whose need was at that point of survival. So you see how the two different needs can play when it comes to motivation. So there are people, again, we talked a lot about it many times. We talk about it. We talk about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. So you see, a fixed mindset will basically be looking towards the extrinsic and say, okay, this is an external factor. What I need to do is go find myself a job so I can make a living. While the intrinsic, which is truly for the satisfaction, people will say that I need to do more than that. And I'm going to do it because this is going to bring me a pleasure. I'm going to write a book, or I go do exercise because it gives me pleasure, because the value that I receive from this motivation is much more than just the few dollars that I'm going to receive. And that is the big difference between the two of them. So when you have a growth mindset, then your motivation is completely different. It goes out and you go out and you learn new trades. You do things, you get into the business or you get into a profession where you're constantly or always getting some rewards, not only financial, but more of the personal level where you feel satisfied. You see, in my case, I always felt that I knew that the failure was just never an option. It didn't exist in my dictionary. Even though in the last moments of my life, on the days of my life when I did not know where my next meal is going to come from, I was always motivated to go out and do something. And I wanted to do better, even though in the very, very tough situation. So you see, my situation was always different. I always felt that I was motivated. I always wanted to do things to better myself. And I did. And I continued to. So when you are looking at that, it's easier to do it, because what happens is then it makes it so simple that it's not work, that you're doing it for your own satisfaction, even though I was working hard and that I knew that I had to work hard to earn more money. But then I was working hard because it was also giving me the pleasure of the benefits of working hard. So you see, you can have the combination of the two if you want to. See, in my case, I always had a vision that I'm going to do better at every step. So that continued to give me more of a fuel, that continued to give me more as to what I can do with my life. So you see, motivation is two ways. One is where somebody just wants to do enough, which is truly a fixed mindset. You want to do enough to just have your basic needs looked after, versus somebody who's looking to do things where there's not only basic needs, but then there's a lot of wants, there's a lot of wishes, there are a lot of stuff that you want to do for yourself, for the pleasure of yourself, and that motivation is for the growth mindset. So coming back to my original story, when I talked about these people, when I talk about the people who were working hard, but their main goal was to earn money, to bring in enough revenue so that they can have a lifestyle, but really to have their children go to school, and their children, and them, the feeling that their children were not motivated. So how do we motivate? So the question then becomes, how do we motivate our children, or for that matter, our team members? What is it that it takes from a person to motivate another person? To motivate children, to motivate team members, to motivate if you're at your work. How do you do that? And I find there's five steps that I can think of, that I have jotted down here, and those 5 steps can truly show how to create, how you're going to create the motivation within your team, within your people, within your children, within your family. And the first one is to create a vision. You see, without vision, nothing we can do that'll help. There has to be a vision. There has to be a goal, and at the end of the goal, which says, where are you going? What are you doing? What is going to be the reward? So the vision becomes the roadmap for the motivation. When I see that I'm doing something where I can visualize that should I be doing this, and then that will bring me to point B, which is what I visualize it, I see it far, I see it, what that will bring me. So this number one thing for anything is the vision. So how do we share that vision with other people? How do we share that vision with other people? You see, you do that with the connection, with connecting the purpose. What is your why? Why are we doing this? What is your purpose in life? You know, I wanted to succeed because my purpose in the life at that time, was at that time to make sure that I look after my parents, and at the same time I was starting a young family, and to make sure that I look after my family, that I have a better way of living, that I have a bigger car. I had all the dreams, you even call it trappings, but that's what I had. I had all the dreams of becoming somebody in the society. And I did that. And I followed, and therefore working hard was not difficult. So I had the vision, and I connected that vision to my why. To why am I doing this? What is the reason? Why are we going to do what we do? You always have to have it. You have to have a purpose. And you must have a purpose in your life. Now, number 3 is really reward. Reward the effort, not just the outcome. Because what happens is, to begin with, the motivation is something that is very extrinsic to begin with. It's something very external. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to motivate somebody or even ourselves. So unless we have seen the vision, we know what's why, but now we must make an effort. And this is where the resilience comes in, right? So if you're making an effort, if you're trying to go out, and if you're trying to do something, then maybe sometimes it would not work. But is the effort there? You see, the effort needs to be there. It's the effort that is the most important. Because once we start with the effort, it becomes easier once we put the effort in. So the The third thing is really rewarding the effort, not only the results, but the effort. If you're putting the efforts, you know something great will come in. I was very lucky to have a father who always would say to me, regardless of what we were doing, he would always, his things was, have you put enough effort in it? If you have, then things are going to go fine. And that becomes so important that the effort says this will eventually pay off. And the fourth one is the encouragement. Again, that goes hands in hand with the efforts, because when you are doing the effort, the resilience comes into question, because every effort is this is not guaranteed that you're going to get up in the morning and you're going to go out and you're going to say, wow, this is it, we're doing it, I put an effort, and there's going to be fallbacks, there's going to be failures, and there's going to be difficulties, there's going to be bumps along the road going on to do something else. So the encouragement becomes very important. The encouragement of the employees, the encouragement of the children, the encouraging everybody that you are trying to motivate, including yourself. Because without that, it will become a failure, and then you don't go back to the thing. So then the last thing, that the fifth one for me, is you have to lead by example. So if you're motivating your children, you're motivating your team members, you're motivating your employees, whoever you're doing this to, there has to be an example. And you are that particular example. I always felt that people work better when you led by example, because when they see you succeeding, then people want to succeed. I remember a story that was so important. A young man, I had just finished building my house. I think I've spoken about that before. I had just finished building my house, and a young man was working in the garden section, and somehow or the other, he felt he wanted to emulate me. He wanted to be like me, and it was within a few weeks he showed up in my office, and when I spoke to him, he says, "I would like to work for you." And in those days, it was easier to say, "I would like to work for you, not with you." And I said, "No, you will work with me." I was just amazed. I was just amazed with him. And he came in because he saw me working hard. He saw me what I was able to do. And he noted, and he was of a growth mindset. So he said to himself that he needs to do this. He motivated himself. He wanted to do things in his life. So he came to me and we worked together, but then he saw me, and that was his example. So you see, it's very important to lead by example. When we do that with our children, even if you feel they're not giving any attention, they are putting attention. They are looking at it. Just think about it and see them as to how they will thrive. You see? So to motivate somebody, just to repeat one more time, 5 of them. Number 1 is you need to have a vision. Number 2, you must connect it to a purpose. Number 3, you need to reward the effort, not just the results, but the effort must be very important. Number 4 is the encouragement, and number 5 is lead by example. You see, motivation is a very difficult thing for certain people. When you don't know what your vision is, when you don't know what your why is, it's very, very difficult. And this is when you only motivate yourself to the external factors, which says, this is what I need to live a small life, and this is what I'm going to earn. But once you start having the growth mindset, then the motivation is internal. It's intrinsic. It makes so easy for you to go out. So it's such an important part in our life, the motivation. It is just how we use it, what we do with it. I hope you took away something from this. I hope you understood the things that I am trying to discuss. I hope you took away something so that you can help your fellow team members, your own children, and if you know somebody who needs to hear this, please send it to them. Please subscribe to my channel. Until next time, I'm Aslam Khatri. Thank you very much.